Do carbon-plated racing shoes have to break your budget? Until recently it seemed that way, but now we're getting more and more budget options from brands like Homa, Li-Ning, or even those infamous Zaras that I tested recently. Of course, one of these options has to be a model from Kiprun, Decathlon's house brand, and that's exactly what we'll take a closer look at. Here are the cheapest carbon shoes from Decathlon, Kiprun KD900X.2.
Yeah, I'm overzealous when I'm thinking about the cash flow. I never had no handouts, just came natural. I've been testing so much, all these wrestlers nice, all these different situations that I've been through.
Kiprun KD900X.2 are training racing shoes with a carbon plate, very lightweight, designed for a wide spectrum of distances from 5K up to a marathon. But before we talk about how they feel while running, let's start with the technical aspects as always. The upper is made of very thin and breathable mesh with fairly large holes. It's semi-transparent almost throughout its entire length. At the front of the shoe there's a slight reinforcement with a minimally harder tape to protect the toes a bit, but it's really minimal protection. Around the heel there's soft material that increases comfort, but there's so little of it that you definitely won't miss that these are shoes with racing pedigree. The heel counter is slightly reinforced from the inside and also lightly stabilized by tape on the outside. Standard lacing, the laces could be a bit better, but they do their job very well, and with a double loop they never came undone for me. The tongue isn't integrated with the upper, it's held in place by the laces passing through it. It's very thin, light and flexible, but unfortunately this comes with a problem. Sometimes when putting on the shoe you need to be very careful that it doesn't fold over and cause additional chafing. The insole is about 5mm thick and made of very lightweight foam. I wouldn't look for additional stability in it. It mainly provides a sense of softness. Let's move on to the midsole. Here we have two layers of dynamic and responsive V foam, also known from more expensive Kiprun models, and between them is a carbon plate running the full length of the foot. It's positioned quite close to the ground, which we can see through the cutout in the outsole. The foam itself doesn't feel overly soft to the touch, it's more of an average softness. The plate, on the other hand, is quite stiff, but not so much that I couldn't bend the shoe in half. Kiprun KD900X.2 meets World Athletics guidelines. Under the heel we have 40mm of foam, under the midfoot 32mm, which gives us an 8mm drop. The outsole is covered with transparent rubber on the vast majority of its surface. The tread pattern is typically racing oriented. Slightly sand covered asphalt is a nightmare for them. We start to slide significantly, but on dry and wet asphalt it performs really well. After 100k there also are no significant wear and tear on the tread. As befits racing shoes, the Kiprun KD900X.2 weighs very little, but considering the price point this is even more worth appreciating. The shoe in men's size 42 EU weighs 195 grams. Women's it's 182 grams, and in my size EU 45 or US 11 it's a shocking 210 grams. The lightest racing shoes I've ever had, not counting Streakfly 2 because that's a slightly different category of shoe. Sizing is standard. I might consider going half a size down because in my standard 45 EU or 11 US I have a bit more room in front of my toes than usual. Kipruns are also medium width, so for a large number of runners there should be enough space inside. So how do these shoes run? When buying these shoes I obviously had some considerable doubts. After all, a price that's quite low for carbon-plated shoes has to create some question marks in your head. It turns out, however, that my doubts were completely unnecessary. Kiprun KD900X.2 performs really well. Let's start with dynamics because that's what's most important in training racing shoes. It's a high level here. That's definitely noticeable, although it's not that typical trampoline-like feeling you get in many carbon models. No, here the effect is a bit more subdued. However, the more we accelerate, the more the KD900X.2 shows its claws. More force put into striking the ground gives a significantly stronger energy return. At medium speeds, let's say around half marathon pace, it's good, although here the cushioning comes a bit more to the forefront. The slower you go, the more the Kipruns transform from a sports car into a city car. Easier running is pleasant, comfortable. The shoe doesn't pull you forward and allows for recovery. This is where you can perfectly see that training racing pedigree. But I'll also note right away, it's fine for easy runs, but I definitely wouldn't call this model an everyday trainer. Other features of this shoe mean that for long, easy runs, I'd look for something else. Take the upper for example, it's ultra light, hugging the foot well. For racing shoes this is definitely an advantage, but for everyday use it lacks that coziness. Nevertheless, I think the upper is a strong point of the Kiprun KD900X.2. It works great for training, racing applications and gives an impression of being surprisingly durable. Also in terms of appearance, this model performs really well. You can see it's a racing model, but it's not as aggressive a design as usually seen in racing shoes. Here it's a bit more subdued, not over the top, although the large Kiprun logo won't appeal to everyone. I actually quite like it. My color variant is a combination of white with pastel shades of purple and blue. They might not be my favorite colors, but it looks quite neat. Now a new variant in shades of grey has also appeared and it looks great. The price is obviously a big plus, 130 euros for shoes with a carbon plate that perform really well and where the plate isn't just inserted so they can brag about it in marketing materials. It's a very good thing for the running shoe market. And what didn't I quite like? The firmness of the foam might not be entirely my cup of tea. I prefer super soft shoes, and here we have softness on the level of Brooks Hyperion Max or Saucony Ride. On longer training grounds, I somewhat missed that sinking feeling of the foot when landing, although I must admit it wasn't a huge problem. It's definitely a very individual matter, and you'll have to answer for yourself what you're looking for. The grip in this shoe is so-so. The thread pattern of the outsole is super flat and you can definitely feel that on slightly looser surfaces. Clean, even slightly wet asphalt doesn't pose a problem for these shoes. The issue arises when the surface is lightly covered with sand. Then you can clearly feel your foot sliding during push-off. And the last drawback is the folding tongue due to lack of the gusseted tongue, as well as the very thin and flexible material. It's very difficult to keep this tongue in check. The first problem appears when putting on the shoe. You need to pay special attention here so that it doesn't fold over at this point. And more can occur during running on longer training runs. I sometimes found that the tongue shifted and folded. Let's also take a look at alternatives. You can currently buy the Kiprun KD900X.2 for 130 euros. That's a great price for shoes with carbon plate, and in this range it's actually difficult to find something worth recommending. And I don't want to recommend shoes I haven't tried, which is why I won't include suggestions from Homa Sport, for example. So what can I recommend? First would be the shoes without the plate, but with very similar running sensation both on easy and faster training runs. Adidas Evo SL. You get these for 10 euros more than Kipruns, but they're also much more versatile shoes. They also look great, and it's no coincidence that they are still in my favorite shoe of the year for 2025. The second option, already with a plate, is unfortunately much more expensive, although still not at the price level of typical racing shoes. Nike Zoomfly 6, one of my favorite shoes of 2024. Carbon plate, a large amount of ZoomX foam, really very good training racing shoes that outperform Kipruns in many respects, but the difference isn't colossal. The difference in price, however, is because for the Zoomflies you will pay 40 euros more. Kiprun KD900X.2 is a positive surprise for me. These are competent training racing shoes with a carbon plate at a decent price for this type of shoe. They are very lightweight, do their job very well, and will work great for many runners as their first carbon racing shoes. Is it worth getting into carbon if you're not a fast runner? It depends, and that's not a topic for today's video. For races, I have better models in my rotation, but I still use KD900X.2 as shoes for faster training sessions or intervals. They are comfortable, don't get in the way, and you can feel their dynamic character. If you made it to the end, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe, give a thumbs up, and be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts on these shoes. I also invite you to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. All links can be found in the description. See you in the next video.
Pacino.